After I gave birth, my sister-in-law took my baby to her room for bonding time, and refused to let me in. My husband said, "Let her have this moment, you're too emotional." I broke down in the hallway. 2 months later, they were summoned to court because someone had reported. I, 31 female, gave birth to my daughter Sophie just a few months ago, and I'm still trying to process what the hell happened during those first few weeks. I feel like a piece of me got ripped out and stepped on. By my sister-in-law Megan, 36 female, and my now ex-husband Ray, 34 male, who was supposed to protect me. We live in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Not a big city, not tiny either. We've been married for 3 years. Things weren't perfect between Ray and me before Sophie came, but I honestly thought the baby would bring us closer. Instead, it broke us. Or maybe it just exposed who he really was. The nightmare started right after Sophie was born. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. I had just gone through over 10 hours of labor, unmedicated for most of it. My body was shaking. I was sweating and freezing at the same time. When they handed me my baby, I felt like I was on another planet, exhausted, but also floating. That feeling didn't last. Megan showed up less than 2 hours later. I didn't invite her. She just came. She walked in with this big fake smile and went straight to the baby, acting like I wasn't even there. "Oh my God, she looks exactly like me when I was a baby," Megan said. "She's got the last name, nose." I was still lying in bed, bleeding, stitched up, sore as hell. And Megan just took Sophie from the bassinet and sat down with her like it was her kid. I said nothing at first. I didn't want to be rude. But it kept happening. Every single day I was in the hospital, Megan came. She wouldn't let go of Sophie. I'm not kidding, nurses had to ask her to give the baby back to me for feedings. Once I buzzed the nurse when I realized Sophie wasn't in the bassinet, and the nurse told me, "Oh, your sister is walking her in the hallway." My sister? No. My sister-in-law. And no one asked me if it was okay. When I told Megan I wanted Sophie back, she acted like I was paranoid. "You're just tired, hon, I've got her. Go back to sleep." By the time we got home, Megan was basically part of the furniture. She claimed she was helping, because I was still healing. But what she was really doing was inserting herself into every moment that should have been between me and my daughter. Ray didn't just let it happen. He defended her. Constantly. "She's just excited," he'd say. "It's her first niece." Okay, so what? That doesn't mean she gets to take over my entire role as a mother. For days after we brought Sophie home, Megan did something I still haven't recovered from. I had just nursed Sophie. I was tired. Megan said, "Let me burp her, I've got her." I agreed, stupidly. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I went to check. The guest room door was closed. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. "Megan?" Still nothing. I jiggled the knob. It was locked. I started freaking out. "Open the damn door." Then she said calmly through the door, "I just got her down. Please don't ruin this. You're too stressed. I'll bring her out later." What? That's when Ray showed up. I thought he'd be furious. I thought he'd kick the door down and tell his sister to give our baby back. Instead, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Just let her have this moment. You're overreacting. You're too emotional." Too emotional. That's when I broke. I slid down the wall, right there outside the locked guest room, and I cried so hard I could barely breathe. My whole chest was aching. I was in pain from the stitches, from breastfeeding, from lack of sleep. And now my baby was being kept from me by someone who wasn't even the mother. Ray didn't comfort me. He walked away. From then on, I had to fight to hold my own baby. Megan would scoop her up any time I went to the bathroom. She'd call it empty time. She'd tell me to go rest, or that I looked overwhelmed. I started keeping a journal. Times. Dates. Everything. One day, I woke up to find Megan sitting in the nursery rocking Sophie, wearing a "Mommy and Me" shirt set. She had a whole set of photos on her phone of just the two of them. I asked her to delete them. She said no. "You don't understand," she said. "Sophie and I connect. You're too anxious to raise her right now. She needs calm energy." That was the beginning of the end. I reached out to a lawyer friend of mine, Becca. She told me to keep documenting everything and to talk to someone, so I started seeing a therapist. The therapist validated everything I was feeling. She said I was being emotionally isolated and gaslit during a vulnerable time. I cried in that session harder than I ever had in my life. I also called CPS. Not to get anyone in trouble, but to protect my daughter. I needed to know what my rights were. 2 months after Sophie was born, Megan and Ray were served with court papers. Someone had reported emotional interference with maternal bonding and parental alienation. Megan lost it. She screamed at me, said I was trying to cut her out of Sophie's life. Ray told me I was tearing the family apart. But I was calm. Because I had everything. Photos. Voice memos. Texts. Witnesses. I'd been gathering it all quietly while they tried to push me out of my own daughter's life. Court date was set. And I was ready. The night before the court date, Ray didn't come home. I didn't ask where he was. I didn't care anymore. My focus was on Sophie and making sure the truth got heard. But around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Megan. "You're making a big mistake. We could have been family. Sophie deserves better than this drama." I didn't reply. But the next morning, when I showed up to court with Becca and my folder of evidence, I noticed something right away. Ray and Megan had hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The same one Megan used when she fought her ex for custody of his kid. I didn't even know she had a custody case in her past until then. That lawyer walked in with a smug look, like this was going to be easy. They weren't expecting what I had. The judge was quiet, older, and didn't say much at first. Just listened. My lawyer laid it all out. I had screenshots of texts where Megan talked about calming Sophie better than me. I had timestamps of her locking herself in rooms with my baby. I had audio of Ray telling me to let Megan have this moment. But the part that shifted everything? The nurse from the hospital came. She wasn't even someone I remembered clearly, but she showed up. She testified that Megan had interfered with feedings and even lied once, saying I was asleep, when I'd actually been asking for Sophie. The judge asked Ray if he remembered that. He shrugged and said, "It was a crazy time. We were all emotional." That's when the judge's tone changed. "Emotional doesn't excuse alienating a mother from her newborn child," he said. Then came the twist I didn't expect. My lawyer asked Megan directly, "Have you ever had involvement with family court before?" She hesitated. Then said no. Becca pulled out paperwork. Custody dispute. 2 years ago. Megan had taken her ex's daughter, her stepdaughter, without permission for a weekend trip, and was charged with interference. Charges were later dropped, but the court records still existed. The judge stared at her. "So you've done this before?" Megan's face turned red. Ray leaned in and whispered something to her, but she just shook her head. That moment changed everything. The judge asked for a recess. When we came back in, he didn't waste time. Temporary full custody to me. No solo visitation for Megan. Supervised visits only for Ray until a full review could be completed. Megan started shouting in court. Said I was using the system to destroy their family. The bailiff had to tell her to sit down. Ray didn't say a word. I took Sophie home that day alone. And I locked the doors. But it wasn't over. A week later, I got an email. Ray's lawyer had filed for emergency custody, claiming I was withholding access and mentally unstable. I nearly threw up when I read it. But then, I found something that made my stomach drop even more. My neighbor, James, came over the next morning. He looked nervous. Said he didn't want to get involved at first, but he'd seen something. 2 nights before the court date, he saw Megan outside my house. In the dark. Near Sophie's window. She didn't see him watching. But she stood there, holding something, what he thought was a baby monitor receiver. She was listening in. He took a picture. He didn't know what to do with it until now. That photo? We added it to the case file. Things were getting darker than I ever expected. And I was ready to fight even harder. A few days after my neighbor gave us the photo of Megan standing outside my window, my lawyer filed for a protection order. The judge approved it. Megan was legally banned from coming within 200 feet of me or Sophie. I thought that would be the end of it, or at least buy me some peace. But I was wrong. A week later, I got a call from the daycare I'd just signed Sophie up for, just 2 half-days a week, so I could finally rest and start working part-time from home again. I'd only told 2 people, my mom and Ray. The daycare director sounded confused and concerned. "Hi, I'm just confirming. Will Aunt Megan still be doing the Thursday pickups for Sophie?" My heart dropped. I never put Megan on the contact list. I asked the woman to repeat what she just said. She told me Megan had come by the daycare that morning, said she was Sophie's aunt and that she'd be handling pickups from now on. She even brought a photo of herself holding Sophie. The staff didn't hand Sophie over, thank God. But Megan had tried. She violated the protection order again. I drove straight to the police station and filed a report. Then I called my lawyer. Then I pulled Sophie from that daycare. I didn't feel safe anymore. That same night, my mom offered to come stay with me for a while. I said yes. I needed the help, but more than that, I needed someone I could trust in my house again. Ray showed up at my door 3 days later. He didn't call or text first. He just knocked like he still lived there. I didn't open the door. I spoke through the Ring doorbell. "What do you want?" I said. He looked tired. Not angry, just defeated. "I want to see Sophie," he said. "Just 5 minutes. You can talk to your lawyer," I said. "I'm not doing this at my front door." Then he said something that stopped me cold. "Megan's not okay. She's obsessed." I didn't know how bad it was. I said nothing. Just stared at the screen. "She's been going to therapy," he added. "I thought it would help, but she talks about Sophie like she's her own. She says things like my baby. She keeps saying I betrayed her by taking your side." I wanted to scream. "Took my side?" He didn't take my side. He threw me under the bus until the court forced him to back off. "She's scaring me now," he said quietly. Then he left. I didn't believe him. I still don't. I think he was covering his ass. But he was right about one thing: Megan had become obsessed. My lawyer filed a permanent restraining order after that. We added the daycare incident, the police report, and the Ring doorbell footage of Ray admitting that Megan saw Sophie as her baby. That's when another twist came in. 2 weeks later, CPS called me. Again. This time, someone had filed a complaint against me. The report claimed I was neglecting Sophie, keeping her isolated and mentally unstable. I knew immediately it was Megan. The CPS worker was polite. She did the usual home check. Inspected the fridge. Looked at Sophie's crib, her bottles, her clothes. Spoke to my mom, who vouched for me. At the end of the visit, the worker apologized. "I'm sorry you're going through this," she said. "We get false reports sometimes. But we have to check." I thanked her and shut the door, and then I lost it. I broke down crying. Not because of CPS. But because this woman, Megan, was still trying to get control. She couldn't stand that she lost. So now she was trying to destroy me another way. Ray called that night. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Megan's been staying with our cousin now. She's not well. I didn't see it before. I thought you were just hormonal. I'm sorry." Too late. But that voicemail became another piece of evidence. The next custody hearing was coming up in 3 weeks. And I had everything lined up. I just didn't know that Megan was planning one more move. A dangerous one. 3 weeks later, the final custody hearing was coming up. I had everything ready. Every report, every witness, every message and photo. I wasn't nervous. I was done being scared. I just wanted this chapter over. But 5 days before the court date, something happened that nearly pushed me over the edge. I was out with Sophie, our first real outing in weeks. Just the two of us at a small park on the edge of town. It was quiet. I brought a blanket and her bottles and sat under a tree while she napped in her stroller. I must have looked away for 10 seconds. Maybe less. When I looked back, the stroller was gone. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Then I saw her, Megan, halfway across the park, pushing Sophie like she had every right. I screamed her name and ran. She didn't stop. She actually picked up the pace, like she was going to leave the park. I caught her near the parking lot and physically grabbed the stroller. She held on tight. "She's my baby," Megan said. Her voice was shaking. "You don't love her like I do." People were watching. I yelled, "Call 911." 2 people did. Megan let go of the stroller and backed off. She was still screaming when the cops got there. She got arrested on the spot for violating the restraining order and attempted parental abduction. Sophie was okay. Just scared and crying. I was shaking for hours after. That was the last time Megan ever saw her. The court hearing went forward as planned. I showed the judge everything. The daycare incident. The false CPS report. The park. The police arrest. The voicemail from Ray. The photo of her outside Sophie's window. Even a new audio clip, recorded by Megan's own cousin, of her saying she wished she'd never let me come home from the hospital with the baby. The judge didn't even hesitate. Full legal and physical custody, granted to me. Restraining order against Megan, extended to 10 years. Ray's supervised visitation, revoked indefinitely due to his gross neglect and failure to protect the child from ongoing emotional harm. Ray didn't even fight it. He just sat there. When it was over, Megan screamed in the hallway outside the courtroom. They had to escort her out. She told everyone I brainwashed the court. But it didn't matter anymore. I was free. It took another 3 months to finalize the divorce. Ray didn't ask for anything. Didn't want custody. He didn't even want visitation once the court made it clear Megan was a danger. He moved to Pittsburgh and blocked me on everything. I found out later from a friend that Megan was sent to a psychiatric facility for evaluation. She was diagnosed with some kind of obsessive disorder and wasn't allowed to have contact with children. She lost her teaching license too. I didn't even know she had one. Ray moved in with a new girlfriend and hasn't seen Sophie since. As for me, I stayed in Scranton. I got a new job slowly. Took Sophie to mommy and me classes. I reconnected with my older sister. I started going to therapy every week. I no longer wake up scared someone's going to take my baby. But I lock every door. Every night. I double-check the windows. I keep cameras up around the house. Not because I'm paranoid. Because I remember. Because I will never forget the moment I sat in a hallway, 4 days postpartum, sobbing while the people I trusted most in the world kept my newborn behind a locked door. But I made it out. And now Sophie smiles when she sees me. She knows who her mother is. And no one, not Megan, not Ray, not anyone, can take that from me again. Ever.